job seekers, to another exciting episode of the Just Get Hired podcast. As we dive into the summer season, I have lined up a bunch of great guests who are going to spill the beans on landing that dream job or taking your career to new heights. And if you're all about making waves in your job search and you want to stand out from the pack, you have come to the right spot. I'm your host, Jessica Fiesta George, your ultimate career guide, and I consider myself your new career bestie. I am helping companies and professionals just like you navigate this ever-evolving world we call work. Today, we are going to tackle the challenge of breaking into the world of recruiting when you're starting from scratch. And today I have Nate Young with us. He's a former medical technician in the Navy, and he has now turned HR recruiter for a major health services brand. And he's going to bring a wealth of experience from the healthcare management to military service and just give us all his perspective on this topic. Nate, welcome to the Just Get Hired podcast.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your service, first and foremost. So in the Navy, you were not a recruiter. What motivated you to pursue this path, and how did you navigate through that transition and that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the Navy, I was a Navy corpsman. I dealt with a lot of direct patient care. And then in April 2022, my daughter was born. And I had made the decision after that to transition out of the service. And after dealing with COVID for around 2.5 years being on the front lines, I decided that I wanted to move away from direct patient care. And so I started exploring other alternatives. And I knew that the best way to pivot in a career is to stay within the same industry, because then your experience is still relevant. So my healthcare experience still mattered, and I was able to get picked up for an internship as a healthcare recruiter specializing in physician recruitment.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of people have asked you, they always ask me, how do you break into recruiting? Do you have any initial actionable tips that you can recommend to people who want to get into a recruiting-based career?
Yeah.
Without experience.
Some of the biggest tips that I would say is you have to research the field. You have to understand the terminology, learn the lingo, learn the relevant software, start networking very heavily. A recruiter's net worth is based on their network, and having access to candidates that other recruiters don't is going to make you that much more pristine of a recruiter. The other aspect is developing your relevant skills. For example, you don't have to be a recruiter to purchase and access LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is I'm a big proponent for. But learning how to utilize that software, and then you get to add that bullet to your resume, helps you stand out. But two, you're actually building lead generation pipelines that you can use in future roles.
Okay, so I did peek on your LinkedIn, and you did have this as a post the other day. So for people who might not be too comfortable or familiar with LinkedIn Sales Navigator or some of those tools, can you just describe what is it used for? How are you using it currently? And as a recruiter, is it helpful?
Yeah. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator it's really meant for individuals in the sales field. There's multiple types of LinkedIn premium accounts. So you have LinkedIn Premium, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Recruiter, and LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. A lot of recruiters actually go with Sales Navigator because it gives you the ability to create funnels and lead pipelines. It also gives you 50 InMail credits a month. Then you can register. So say I'm going through profiles and I find candidates of interest, but I don't have InMails available that month or any connection requests to send. I can actually move them into a specialized pipeline that will allow me to track any kind of updates, career changes with their profiles, and then follow up the next month with an InMail credit. Total cost for LinkedIn Sales Navigator is about $100 a month. For a Recruiter Lite, it's about $200 a month. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I, as a recruiter, actually just Friday or last week, I recruited an audiologist. And what I did is I used the InMail credit to introduce myself, introduce the opportunity to the candidate, really focused on the sourcing aspect of the recruitment field, and was able to bring that candidate in within a week. We had her a full-time job offer.
That's amazing. Well, I always tell candidates to approach your job search like you were approaching any type of sales environment. So you have to build your list of target companies like you would if you were a recruiter building like your candidate profile list. Using tools like this would be a game changer for a lot of people. I mean, it's a small investment. I know if you're not working, of course, $100 to cough up might be a little bit difficult, but I think the reward at the end is you're going to get to reach out to more people that you probably wouldn't have access to if you didn't have this tool, right?
Yeah. Now, as a job seeker, if I had to go back in my shoes, I would be using Sales Navigator the entire time because it allows you pretty much X-ray vision on any company where it automatically shows you who the key decision makers are. It highlights like significant roles that they've been in and allows you to kind of tailor your message and your outreach to them. So I think it's a phenomenal investment for $100.
Okay. Well, if it's not in someone's budget, I mean, what are some other transferable skills that someone can take from their non-recruiting background and that they can leverage that to kind of stand out if they wanted to become a recruiter?
Yeah. Some other like tools that I would learn to gather is like AI. AI is definitely the future, and recruiting is using it very heavily. I use ChatGPT, the Nova app. It's like $40 a year for a subscription. Absolutely phenomenal. It's a real big game changer because it allows you to formulate email campaigns. It teaches you how to break down search engine optimize your job postings. You can create advertisement and marketing material. It's absolutely phenomenal. And for $40 a month, you really get a lot of bang for your buck. For individuals that don't have recruiter relevant skills, I would say that you really have to learn how to tailor your resume and your approach to enter in that field to focus on like transferable skills. So for example, like my teachers, I tell them like, hey, maybe look at getting into like a recruitment role that's with an agency. Say for example, as like a sourcer that works a 1099 job. In fact, that's probably one of the number one ways that I see a lot of people pivot into recruitment is they still work their full-time job and then work a 1099 role as a independent contractor with an agency where they'll learn the fine prints of like how to source, how to recruit, how to approach candidates, all that. Because a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that like a career pivot happens overnight. For me, my career pivot into recruitment took about 4 months. And then in addition to the 3 months of internship before I landed a full-time role. And even during that role, I was still working 1099 roles, trying to learn, expand my reach. And that's what really helped me when I went from my full-time role with a Fortune 500 company to be successful in that.
Okay. Well, there's different types of recruiters. You mentioned sourcers. I would always recommend too that if you can't find like a traditional recruiting role, like sourcing, onboarding coordinator, HR coordinator, starting to understand how the process works from start to finish, from the time we post a job to when we bring someone on board. Those types of roles are very helpful to understand, even if recruiting is for you. There's agency recruiters, you have in-house and corporate, executive search. So there's a lot of different levels of recruiting. So not all recruiters are created equal. Would you say that's true or false?
I definitely say that's true. I think some of the best recruiters that I know are the ones that started off as sourcers, because that is a key aspect to being a successful recruiter is being able to find your candidates.
It starts with finding the right people. And if you don't know how to source, then you're probably in trouble there. So I did have an episode last year with one of my recruiters. Her name is Katie Elkins. We talked about the different levels of recruiters. So if you are curious about the different types of recruiting there is out there, I would recommend that if you're listening or watching this video, that you go back and listen or watch that. It was part of our Hot Take Summer series, but we go through all of the different types of recruiting there is. And maybe if you are listening and you are curious about, what type of recruiter you want to be, that will give you some insight. But let's reflect on your recruiting career so far. Are there any aha moments that you have had that has shaped your approach to this profession?
Yeah, definitely. Probably one of the biggest moments was when I was doing some market research and I realized that a lot of the big social media groups like on Facebook and LinkedIn, specifically for like the providers that I target, which is like physician assistants and nurse practitioners, a lot of those major social media groups are actually started by recruiters.
Okay.
which was like a mind blown event because like there was like a physician assistant group that had 10,000 members and it was exclusively physician assistants. But then you go look at who found the group and it was a recruiter. So now that
Okay.
recruiter has their own candidate pool. And one of the things that helped me stand out, because I landed my current job and I beat out 338 other way more experienced, way more qualified recruiters. And the way I did it was by being innovative. And that's another way that you can really pivot into this role is by setting yourself up now for tomorrow. So for me, I actually started a Facebook group for
Mhm.
transition like military members that have medical backgrounds or veterans. And right now that group stands at like 750. But when I brought
Nice.
that up during my job interview, I was like, hey, I started this group. I have 500, exclusive military members that are all experienced, all trained, that only I have access to. And I'd love to establish that as a pipeline. And that right away showed my hiring manager that I could be innovative, I could be creative. And now I have a solid candidate pipeline that no one else has access to.
I think a lot of recruiters are starting to get more comfortable with using social media. So I love the fact that you have started this group and it seems like it's blossoming. I think that's your secret sauce to how successful you have become in here, because a lot of people don't want to set up or have the time to monitor and manage a group. But, you put it out there, people start joining. If you have a need, you can tap into that pool of people. So that's amazing.
It's a
Are
lot
there,
of work. Oh,
oh,
sorry,
I
go ahead.
bet. No, I bet it is. It's a lot of work just to get on LinkedIn, just to figure out what to post every day. But are there any last minute steps or actionable tips that you would love to share with the audience about how to break into recruiting?
Yeah. I would say when you're initially breaking into a new career, try not to focus too heavily on like the salary because entry level recruiters don't make terribly too much, but don't let it scare you away because you want to look at a long term investment. My first job didn't pay the greatest. My second job is about 30,000 more a year than what I was making previously, and it took me 18 months to get here. Um, I see a lot of people enter the recruitment field with like some big name brand agencies that might only pay $15, $20 an hour plus
Mm-hmm.
commissions, but don't overlook the fact that if you can get a good base that will cover your bills and then, commission on top of it, you could make six figures very easily. It puts the whole component of being rich in your pocket. Like it's all about what you bring to the table. And then just learn to be creative. Learn to be okay with being told no 1,000 times a day, uh, whether it's in your job search or your day job. So if you don't like being rejected as a candidate, just imagine when that's your day job being rejected.
Good points. Well, I would say my first investment home came from my first agency job, because my commission check, instead of like spending it frivolously like I would have liked to, my mom said, hey, you need to take that check and then you need to invest it into real estate, and then that'll just pay you off in the end. But again, all kinds of recruiting out there. Corporate recruiting doesn't necessarily pay you a commission, but if you can get in with an agency or something similar like that, that does pay you per placement or a percentage of someone's salary. I mean, you can make a lot of money, and really it's in your hands as far as how much money you're willing to make. So, something to consider if you're looking at shifting careers. Well, Nate, I want to thank you for joining us on the Just Get Hired podcast. You've given us some invaluable insights. I wish we had more time, but I'd love to have you back on, and maybe we can just talk about it from a transitioning veteran perspective on how you transitioned from military service into the corporate world. So I'd love to have you back if you would like to come back on.
Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
well, if you are considering a career shift into recruiting or any other field, remember Nate's advice: leverage your transferable skills, seek mentorship, stay persistent in your pursuit. Don't forget, click that subscribe button, If you like this and other career-related videos, you can go to YouTube or Spotify to watch the video, or take this audio on the go on your favorite podcast platform. I'm going to have more information on how you can connect with Nate on LinkedIn. I'll have it on my website, justgethired.com. So come back next week. I'm going to have more career tips, another guest, and we're going to give you even more content on the Just Get Hired podcast. Until then, keep chasing your career dreams, and remember, your next opportunity could be right around the corner. Thanks for joining.